Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the spine-chilling podcast, Horror Talks with Tate. My name is Tate and I'm your host for this podcast, and I cannot wait to talk about another horror movie for all of you. In this podcast, as usual, we plunge into the depth of intricate plots, delve into rich character development, thematic elements, explore director's cuts, and so much more within the horror genre. Today's episode will dive deep into Terrifier 2, the highly anticipated sequel to the original Terrifier. In this gruesome follow-up, we see the return of the sadistic and terrifying Art the Clown as he once again wreaks havoc in Miles County. This time, his sinister focus is on a young woman named Sienna and her younger brother, Jonathan, who find themselves in Art's twisted crosshairs. With even more gore, chilling suspense, and horrifying encounters, Terrifier 2 takes the terror to a whole new level as Art pushes the boundary of fear. Let's begin this episode with spooky summaries and discuss the plot details for the sequel, Terrifier 2. Terrifier 2 follows the return of Art the Clown, a sadistic and supernatural killer after his apparent death in the first film. The movie focuses on a teenage girl named Sienna Shawn and her younger brother Jonathan, who becomes Art's new target on Halloween night. Sienna is a strong and resourceful character who is grappling with personal trauma, but as Halloween unfolds, her life intersects with the nightmarish presence of Art the Clown. While Art terrorizes the town, Sienna discovers there may be a deeper connection between her family and Art. The film builds on the horror and gore of the first Terrifier, while introducing supernatural elements and more background on Art's evil, creating a more expansive and terrifying world. It also delves into Sienna's growth as a final girl, facing Art in increasingly intense and brutal confrontation. Now it's time to go to discrete directors and talk about how they made the movie and how did it get bigger than Terrifier 1. The film was written and directed by Damien Leone. Damien has a distinctive style that emphasizes extreme gore, practical effects, and a retro slasher aesthetic. His approach to horror in Terrifier 2 can be described as follows. Number 1. Practical gore effects. Leone is known for his commitment to practical effects rather than relying on CGI. The film's graphic violence is shown in intense details, with elaborate makeup and prosthetics enchanting the brutality. This emphasis on practical visual effects heightens the film's shock valve. Number 2. Retro slasher vibes. Terrifier 2 draws inspirations from 1980s slasher films, both in its structure and visual style. Leone used familiar slasher tropes, an unstoppable killer, Art the Clown, a final girl, and a series of increasingly gruesome kills, while pushing boundaries with more moderate levels of inflicted violence. Number 3. Dark humor. Though the film is extremely graphic, Leone injects a twisted sense of humor, particularly through Art the Clown, who blends slapstick-like antics with sadistic brutality. Art's silence but expressive behavior creates an unsettling and often absurd atmosphere. Number 4. Visual style and color palette. Leone used a vibrant color palette, particularly in contrast to the grim subject matter. Neon lighting, bright blood and carnival-like settings gives Terrifier 2 a surreal, nightmarish feel. Number 5. Low-budget aesthetic. Despite the low budget, Leone maximized the film's impact by focusing on practical effects, creative camera work, and inventive ways of showing violence, making a film look more polished than its budget might suggest. Overall, Terrifier 2 showcases Leone's ability to blend extreme horror, dark humor, and practical effects in a way that pay homage to classic slasher film, while amplifying the shock factor for modern audience. Here are the main actors and characters in Terrifier 2. Number 1. David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown, a sadistic supernatural clown who is a central antagonist in the Terrifier series. Number 2. Lorraine Lavara as Sienna Shawn, a brave and determined protagonist who faces off against Art the Clown. Number 3. Elliot Foreman as Jonathan Shaw, Sienna's younger brother who becomes intrigued by Art the Clown's past and plays a significant role in the story. Number 4. Sarah Voigt as Barbara Shaw, the mother of Sienna and Jonathan, trying to protect her children as the terror escalates. Number 5. Samantha Scafidi as Victoria Hayes, a returning character from Terrifier, now severely disfigured after her encounter with Art and dealing with the trauma. Number 6. Casey Harnett as Allie, Sienna's friend who becomes one of Art's unfortunate victims. Number 7. Kaylee Heyman as Brooke, another of Sienna's friend who gets caught in the chaos created by Art. Now for the additional cast, Amelie McLean as the little pale girl, a mysterious ghostly child that appears throughout the film, serving as a counterpart to Art the Clown. Terrifier 2 continues the violent and gory horror of the first movie, while expanding the lore around Art the Clown and introducing new characters like Sienna Shaw to challenge him. The performance in Terrifier 2 received notable attention, particularly for their ability to deliver both horror and dark humor. Here's a breakdown of some key actors. Number 1. David Howard Thornton. Thornton's portrayal of Art the Clown is chilly and grotesquely captivated. He brings a silent, menacing presence to the character using body language and facial expressions to create a terrifying antagonist. His performance is both unsettling and darkly comedic, which adds layer to the already brutal horror sequences. Number 2. Lauren Lavara. Lavara's performance as the film's protagonist, Sienna, was widely praised. She portrays a strong and resilient final girl, standing out for her depth and emotional range. Lavara's Sienna becomes a worthy enemy to Art the Clown, and her character's journey from vulnerabilities to empowerment is compelling. Number 3. Elliot Fulham. As Sienna's younger brother, Fulham delivers a solid performance. His portrayal captures an innocent and curiosity of a younger sibling who gets entangled in the horrific events. His character bonds with Sienna adds emotional stack to the film. Number 4. Sarah Vogt. Vogt plays the mother of Sienna and Jonathan, offering an believable and grounded performance in the midst of the chaotic horror. She portrays a considered but overwhelmed parent, which adds a touch of realism to the family dynamic. The supporting cast also delivers effective performance, helping to build tension and enchant the film's horror atmosphere. Overall, the cast performers were praised for making Terrifier 2 more engaging and emotionally resonant compared to the first film, balancing extreme gore with character-driven storytelling. Terrifier 2 follows a fairly traditional horror narrative structure, but with some twists that enhance its tension and brutality. Here's an outline of its narrative structure. Number 1. Opening sequences. The film opens with a violent, shocking scene that reintroduces Art the Clown, immediately establishing the horror and gore that defines the Terrifier franchise. This sequence sets a tone, showcasing Art's brutality and supernatural resilience. Number 2. Introduction. We are introduced to the main characters, particularly Sienna, the protagonist, and her brother, Jonathan. Their relationship and personal struggles are explored, creating a contrast to the terror looming in the background. The narrative also introduces some mysterious elements, such as Sienna's connection with her late father and the costume she's making, hinting at something deeper within the story. Number 3. Rise in tension. The tension begins to build as Art the Clown starts terrorizing the community. Strange events occurred around Sienna, and Jonathan becomes obsessed with the law of Art. Art's random act of violence escalate, and his targets slowly converge with the protagonist's lives. The supernatural aspects of Art's character are explored further, as he is not just a sadistic killer, but something far more powerful and demonic. Number 4. Climax. This is where the majority of the film's iconic gore and violence take place. Sienna's journey as the final girl becomes central as she faces off against Art. The showdown between her and Art is intense and filled with symbolic elements, particularly surrounding her costume and her father's mysterious influence on her fate. Now I'm going to talk to you guys about the key features. Supernatural elements. Unlike the first Terrifier, the sequel leans more heavily into supernatural horror. Art is no longer just a deranged killer, but an almost underworldly entity. Brutality and gore. The violence in Terrifier 2 is a key structural element, with the film pushing the boundaries of what's shown on screens. Symbolism and themes. Sienna's connection with her father and the symbolic meaning of her costume adds depth to the narrative, though these elements remain somewhat mysterious. These structures blends typical slasher tropes with supernatural horror, pushing Terrifier 2 beyond a simple kill fest into something more mythological and mysterious. Terrifier 2 features several distinct and unsettling settings that enhance its horror atmosphere. Some of the key scene settings include: Number 1. The abandoned carnival. A major setting in Terrifier 2 is an eerie abandoned carnival that serves as the backdrop for much of Art the Clown's terror. This grim environment is filled with dedicating rides, dark hallways, and creepy attraction, all of which contributes to the nightmarish tone of the film. It's a claustrophobic and chaotic space where several intense scenes unfold. Number 2. The Clown Cafe dream sequences. This surreal setting is a colorful, exaggerated version of a cafe, where a particularly disturbing scene takes place. The dreamlike environment contrasts with the darker tone of the rest of the film, but serves to amplify the horror through its disturbing twist and exaggerated characters. Number 3. Sienna's house. The protagonist, Sienna, and her family's home is a central setting, particularly her room, which is where some psychological horror plays out. Her house becomes increasingly foreboding as the supernatural elements of the film intensify. Number 4. The costume shop. In a memorable sequences, Art the Clown encounters one of his victims in a Halloween costume shop. The bright, playful Halloween setting contrasts sharply with the violence that follows, creating a tension-filled scene. And number 5, the high school. Several scenes takes place in a typical suburban high school, offering a more familiar grounded setting before the horror escalates. This adds a layer of normalcy before the characters are pulled into the nightmarish events. These settings help Terrifier 2 maintain a mix of both supernatural and slasher horror, utilizing mundane spaces like homes and stores, as well as more fantastical locations like the carnival to craft its terrifying atmosphere. The music and sound design for Terrifier 2 played a crucial role in creating its intensity, unsettling atmosphere. Here's a breakdown of key elements. Number 1. Score. The film's original score was composed by Paul Wiley, who also scored the first Terrifier film. His work blends electronic music with retro 80s style synth, which adds a nostalgic, eerie tone to the movie. The synth-driven soundtracks often have a pulsating, throbbing quality that amplifies tension and fear during pivotal scenes. The music alternates between slow, menacing tune that builds suspense and fast-paced, high-energy tracks that accompany the violent, chaotic scenes, especially during Art the Clown's more gruesome moments. Number 2. Atmospheric sound design. Terrifier 2 heavily used diegetic sounds like distorted laughter, piercing shrieks, and dissonant noises to create discomfort. These sounds often coincide with Art's movements, amplifying the creepy unpredictability of his character. There's a noticeable use of silence in certain scenes, heightening tension before jump scares or brutal moments. The absence of sounds that key moments makes the sudden return of noises even more jarring. Sound effects during the gore scenes are exaggerated to make every stab, slash, and violent act feel visceral and over the top. The sound design team likely used a mix of Foley effects and post-production to give each act of violence an unnerving texture, making the audience almost feel the impact. Number 3. Character sounds. Art the Clown himself is silent, never speaking a word, but his physicality is accompanied by unnerving sound effects. His footsteps, his props, and the sounds surrounding him become part of his character's sinister present. His trademark silent mime style is often contrasted by sudden loud noises during his appearance, which makes him feel more threatening and unpredictable. Overall, the sound and music design in Terrifier 2 enchants its graphic horror, making the viewing experience more immersive and intense. The making of Terrifier 2 has an interesting history, especially considering its growth from a low-budget cult hit into a notable horror sequel. Here's a breakdown of its history and development. Number 1. Origin and success of the first film. The first Terrifier film introduced Art the Clown, a terrifying villain who had previously appeared in short films and the anthology film All Hallows Eve, all created by Damien Leone. Despite having a small budget, Terrifier became a cult hit due to its extreme gore, practical effects, and the creepy, silent performance of David Howard Thornton as Art. The success of Terrifier promoted Leone to begin working on a sequel, aiming to expand Art's story and delve deeper into his mythology. Number 2. Crowdfunding and budget. To make Terrifier 2, Damien Leone launched a Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign to raise additional fund for the movie's budget. The campaign was a huge success, exceeding its goal. This allowed the production team to create more elaborate special effects and action scenes while still maintaining the film's gritty, low-budget aesthetic. Number 3. Filming and practical effects. The sequel continued to emphasize practical effects, a hallmark of the first film, which garnered praise for its unflinching gore and gruesome kills. Leone, who has a background in special effects makeup, wanted to push the boundaries even further in Terrifier 2, creating more intense and elaborate death scenes. The extended runtime of the film, over 2 hours, allowed for deeper character development and an increased number of kills. Number 4. COVID-19 delays. Like many films in production during this time, Terrifier 2 faced delays due to the COVID-19. The shutdown affected the filming schedule, but the team managed to resume production with safety protocols in place. Despite the delays, Leone kept fans updated through social media, increasing anticipation for the film. Number 5. Plot expansion. Unlike the first film, Terrifier 2 introduced more characters and adds a supernatural elements to Art the Clown's story. The plot revolves around Sienna Shaw, a teenage girl who becomes the target of Art during Halloween. The story dives into her family history and suggests a mystical connection between her and Art. Number 6. Release and reception. Terrifier 2 was finally released in the 6th of October 2022. The film debuted to positive reviews, especially within the horror community, for its creativity performance, particularly David Howard Thornton as Art and Lauren Lavara as Sienna, and commitment to pushing the boundaries of gore and practical effects. The film's theatrical release was notably extended due to strong audience demand, a rarity for low-budget horror films. It quickly gained attention for the extreme reaction from audience, with reports of viewers fainting and vomiting due to the graphic violence. This helped fuel the film's marketing and word-of-mouth buzz, further cementing Terrifier 2 as a modern cult horror success. Number 7. Future of the franchise. Following the success of Terrifier 2, there has been talk of expanding the Terrifier franchise further, including discussions of a Terrifier 3. Damien Leone had hinted that he has plans for the next installment, aiming to explore Art the Clown's backstory and mythology even more deeply. The film's history demonstrates how passion projects, coupled with dedicated fan support and effective use of practical effects, can lead to the growth of a low-budget horror film into a major genre phenomenon. Terrifier 2 takes the brutal and graphic horror of the first film to new height, and its props, weapons, and CGI are a big part of its terrifying impact. Here's a breakdown of what was used, starting with props and weapons. Art the Clown's signature hacksaw. A returning weapon from the first Terrifier, it plays a significant role in the film's gory set piece. Various blades and knives. Art used multiple sharp weapons throughout the movie, including kitchen knives, scalpel, and other cutting instrument. Homemade weapons. Art creates personalized weapons like a spike club, adding a disturbing element of improvisation. Some of these items are enchanted with nails, razors, or other sharp objects. Acid and bleach. These chemical weapons are used in one of the most intense scenes, causing horrific disfigurement and slow death. Firearm. Although Art permanently uses melee weapons, he briefly used a firearm, which surprises both the audience and the victims, deviating from the slasher trope. Now for practical effects and gore. Terrifier 2 is known for its practical special effects, which are largely responsible for its visceral gore, body parts, and gore props. The film used numerous realistic body parts prop, decapitated heads, severed limbs to create its brutal death scenes. Blood effects. Tons of fake blood, squibs, and prosthetics were used to create the movie's infamous bloodbath scene. Elaborate makeup and prosthetics. For scenes involving mutilation, the makeup and prosthetic work was heavily relied upon. For example, there's a particularly gruesome bedroom scene where the victim is skinned and tortured, which uses layers of prosthetic skin and body horror effects. CGI and visual effects. While Terrifier 2 permanently leads on practical effects, some CGI is employed particularly to enchant, blood splatter, and gore enchantment. CGI was used to augment practical effects in some scenes, making blood sprays or dismemberment appear more realistic and exaggerated. Supernatural elements. Art the Clown has supernatural qualities in the sequel. CGI was used in moments where his ability needed to be visual represent, including resurrection scenes or his inhuman endurance to injury. Lighting and atmospheric effects. Some scenes use CGIs to enchant the atmosphere, like adding fog, glowing eyes, and other minor supernatural torches. The mix of practical effects in major CGI embellishments gave Terrifier 2 its gritty and grounded yet surreal aesthetic, ensuring the film's gore felt both shocking and horrifyingly real. Terrifier 2 is filled with subtle foreshadowing that sets up key moments in the movie. Here are some major examples. Number 1. Sienna's dream and wings. Early in the movie, Sienna dreams about Art the Clown, which foreshadows her inevitable confrontation with him. The dream includes a scene where her costume's wings catch fire, which later happens in real life when her angelic wings are burnt during the final battle. The wings symbolize her potential as a hero and her fate to fight Art. Number 2. The sword. Sienna's father leaves her a mysterious sword, which feels significant throughout the film. It's mentioned multiple times and seems to have supernatural properties, hinting at its importance later. In the final act, Sienna uses the sword to defeat Art, suggesting that her father might have known about the evil she would face. Number 3. Art's fascination with Sienna. Throughout the movie, Art seems particularly drawn to Sienna. This obsession is a hint that Sienna has a deeper connection to the supernatural elements of the story, possibly foreshadowing that she and Art are linked in ways beyond a simple victim and killer relationship. Number 4. The Little Pale Girl. The eerie presence of the Little Pale Girl, who follows Art around, foreshadows the film's heavier dive into the supernatural. Her interaction with art and her disturbing behavior suggests that Art's evil is not entirely earthly, setting up a more otherworldly tone of the story. Number 5. Sienna's father's madness. The backstory of Sienna's father and his mental breakdown hints at some dark knowledge he had about Art the Clown and an evil force. His death and his obsession with the sword and drawing of Art foreshadows that Sienna's battle with Art might be destined or part of the larger comic struggle. Number 6. Jonathan's obsession with serial killers. Sienna's brother, Jonathan, is obsessed with serial killers, particularly with the idea that Art might be tied to some sort of mythical or demonic force. His knowledge of Art foreshadows how deeply connected Art is to something supernatural, which becomes clear later in the film. These moments of foreshadowing build up the tension and anticipation, slowly revealing the supernatural elements of Terrifier 2 and the larger narrative thread that connect Sienna and Art. Now, horror fans, let's head on to Insane Insiders and discover the Easter eggs, fun facts, and the audience reviews for Terrifier 2. Terrifier 2 is packed with various Easter eggs and reference both to the original Terrifier and to broader horror culture. Here are some notable ones. Number 1. Art the Clown's origin. The movie gives subtle nods to Terrifier and All Hallows Eve, the short film where Art the Clown has made his first appearance. For instance, certain mannerism and kills reflect his previous behavior, tying his character more deeply into his brutal roots. Number 2. Clown Cafe song. The surreal Clown Cafe sequences features an upbeat yet disturbing song that contrasts sharply with Art's violent behavior. This scene, aside from being horrifying, has a meta-reference to Art's twisted sense of humor, showing that horror and absurdity often intersect. Number 3. Sienna's armor and costume. Sienna, the protagonist, wears a Valkyrie-like costume that her father designed for her, hinting at a deeper mythology that might explain her connections to the supernatural elements at play. Fans have speculated that this could be setting up for further sequels or a larger mythos surrounding Art. Number 4. Terrifier 1 callback. There are several nods to Art's previous kills from Terrifier. For instance, the hacksaw scene from the first movie is reflected in some of Art's brutal attacks in the sequel, further solidifying his iconic killer status. Number 5. The Pale Little Girl. This new character, who appears as a ghostly version of Art, can be seen as a twisted counterpart to Sienna. The character's role remains ambiguous, but fans have speculated that she represents Art's dark ascents, hinting at more supernatural elements and expanding the Terrifier universe. Number 6. The Jack-o'-lantern kill. One of Art's kills involves placing a victim's severed head into a jack-o'-lantern. This moment is a direct nod to Halloween 1978 and other slasher films that use similar imaginary to enchant their holiday-themed horror. Number 7. Vicky's return. Vicky, the lone survivor from the first Terrifier film, makes a shocking return in the sequel, albeit with a tragic twist. Her art serves as a direct continuation of the first film, blending the two narratives seamlessly. Number 8. Reference to the art of horror. Several props and set designs throughout the film seem to pay homage to horror art. For instance, there are posters, graffiti, and background elements in certain scenes that reference other horror icons and classic horror art styles, adding layers of depth for observant viewers. These Easter eggs and reference not only enrich the experience for dedicated horror fans, but also helps expand Art the Clown's mythology in the growing Terrifier universe. Here are some fun facts about Terrifier 2 that fans of the movie will enjoy. Number 1. Crowdfunded success. After the success of the first Terrifier, the sequel was partly funded through an Indiegogo campaign. The initial goal of $50,000 was blown away, raising over $250,000, which allowed the filmmakers to expand the scope of the film. Number 2. Art the Clown's brutality. The director, Damien Leone, wanted to make Art the Clown kills even more brutal in Terrifier 2. The infamous bedroom scene took several days to film due to its complexity and intensity, becoming one of the most talked about scenes in modern horror. Number 3. Longest slasher film. Terrifier 2 has a runtime of 138 minutes, making it one of the longest slasher films ever made. Despite the length, the film's pacing keeps the intensity up throughout. Number 4. Practical effects. Like the first film, Terrifier 2 largely relies on practical effects rather than CGI. Damien Leone, who also served as a makeup and special effects artist, used practical gore effects to give the film a gritty visual feel. Number 5. Sienna's role. Lauren Lavara, who plays Sienna, is a trained martial artist, which helped in a physicality to the role, especially during her battle scenes with Art the Clown. Her character is portrayed as a strong and capable final girl, which stands out in the slasher genre. Number 6. Homage to classic horror. Terrifier 2 is filled with nods to classic horror movies. From its synth-heavy score reminiscent of John Carpenter's work to scenes that evoke the slasher vibes of the 80s, it's a love letter to horror fans. Number 7. Art the Clown's origin. Art the Clown has evolved over several of Damien Leone's films, starting with his 2008 short film, The Ninth Circle, and then reappearing in All Hallows Eve before starting in the Terrifier series. His growing popularity from these films lays a foundation for his terrifying legends in Terrifier 2. Number 8. Unexpected box office hit. Despite its limited release, Terrifier 2 became a box office success. It grossed over $10 million worldwide, impressive for an indie horror film with such a modest budget. Number 9. Fans' reaction. Some viewers reportedly fainted or vomited in theaters due to the graphic nature of the film. The intense violence and shocking scenes in Terrifier 2 generated a lot of buzz, and some theaters even warned audience before showing the film. Number 10. Expanded universe. Damien Leone hinted that there's potentially for a larger Terrifier universe, with more films and a deeper exploration into the backstory of Art the Clown and his supernatural elements. These fun facts showcase why Terrifier 2 has quickly gained cult status among horror fans. Terrifier 2 has received a mix of response from audience, with much of a discussion centered around its extreme gore and the performance of Art the Clown. Fans of slasher films praise the movie for pushing boundaries in horror, with many noting that the practical effects and gruesome kills were very over the top. Some viewers even claim it surpassed the original Terrifier, with Art the Clown solidifying his place as a modern horror icon. The sequel's runtime at over 2 hours didn't bother all fans, especially those who appreciate the expanded plot and character development. However, not all responses were positive. Some viewers felt that the movie was overly long and lacked depth, with criticism of weak acting and a convoluted storyline. A few felt that it relied too much on shock valve, focusing on gore rather than crafting a compelling narrative. Overall, Terrifier 2 is seen as a must-watch for hardcore horror fans who enjoy extreme slasher films, but it may not appeal to casual viewers or those seeking a more plot-driven experience. Before we wrap up today's episode, I'm going to tell you all about my thoughts and reviews for Terrifier 2. I absolutely love Terrifier 2 as much as the first one. In fact, I think it took things to a whole new level. It was even more brutal than Terrifier, with the gore cranked up to an intensity that was truly shocking. What really impressed me though was how the story itself was so well crafted. It added depth to the horror, making the experience more engaging. What I didn't expect were the reports of people actually passing out or even vomiting while watching it in theaters. That just shows how extreme and disturbing some of the scenes were. So if you're a fan of intense horror and you want to see Art the Clown back and more brutal than ever, Terrifier 2 is definitely a must-watch. Well, this concludes today's episode of Horror Talks with Tate. Thank you so much for listening and discovering Terrifier 2 with me, and I will be back next time for the latest installment of the franchise, Terrifier 3. But before I release it, you might need to watch the movie before listening to the upcoming episode. I don't want you all to get lots of spoilers. Make sure to follow, rate, and review this podcast to grow more horror fans like yourself. If you want to stay tuned for more episodes coming along and exciting news, go follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to keep your eyes on them. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for episodes which I will be working on very, very soon. And follow me on TikTok for spooky and funny horror videos. Go see Terrifier 2 if you love too much gore. If you don't, this movie will make you pass out or vomit. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay spooky, and I cannot wait to be back in your head next time.